Okay. So the basic beliefs, we have these, so we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the oneness of Allah. Then we have these 5, he has no beginning, he has no ending, there's nothing like Allah, he has no dependence, very good, mashallah, and he has no partners. Yeah. Then we have the 7 positive. What are these? Number 1, the power of Allah. Allah has absolute power. Yeah, to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants. We call the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, qudratullah. Yeah. Number 2, his irada. He decides whatever he wants to decide. Yeah. So he has complete ability to decide whatever it is that he wants to decide. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. The next one is his ilm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of absolutely everything. Yeah. And the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is greater than the universe, it's greater than what he made, what he knows, what could have happened. Yeah, is much greater. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is hayy, he's living. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is alive. Yeah. And then we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all seeing, all hearing, and speaking. Yeah, he's all hearing, he hears everything, he sees everything, and he speaks. Subhanallah, that's it. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you know those points, then alhamdulillah, you're okay. Because that's what the angels are going to ask you about. Man Rabbuk. Those things are man of Allah, and then you ask them, no. It's like, okay, tell me about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So this is not that we have to know. Unfortunately, I mean, this is why, like, it's interesting because I'm telling you this now, but how did the Prophet teach it? He wouldn't teach them like that. First, he would teach them to love him. That's how we built it. Yeah, and then he would teach these things, because really it's sad, isn't it, that something that's so simple to learn, but people don't learn it, they don't want to learn it. The one who loves the Prophet, he wants more and more knowledge. That's not enough. He said, tell me more. What about his 99 attributes? What else can you tell me about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They want to know more and more and more and more and more until it's never ending, because there's no ending to our knowledge. We can always learn more. Yeah, number 1. So that's what we know. Then we have the prophets themselves. What do we believe about? I guess very, very simple. 5 things we have to know about the prophets. If you know these 5 things, then again, when he asked in the grave about prophets, what do you say about the prophets? What do you say about the Anbiya wa Rusul? You can answer it. Yeah, these are essential things. Maybe Allah Ta'ala, maybe just from this attending this one gathering, this could be the means by which we save from the punishment of the grave. This is like one of our teachers said, to be in a lesson for like 10 seconds is better than 10 years of worship. That's what he said. Especially when it's knowledge that you have to know. Now, these are things that are obligatory. We have to know these things. When you're learning that, there's nothing better. Yeah, that's why it's always amazed me. I was always finding Ajib, people would go and study at university. Not obviously, I went to university myself. It's not to say don't study university, but people will go and study 5, 6, 7 years of university, but they won't even learn this knowledge. And then the parents, they don't understand. You tell the person, you don't understand. That's all good, but he doesn't need to know that. Yeah, it's nice if he knows it, but he doesn't really need to know. She doesn't really need to watch. What do they need to know? This we're talking about now. This is what they need to know. And then, okay, fine. Once they know this, then they can go and learn these other things. But even these other things that we learn is for the intention of serving the ummah. It's very important to understand why are we learning knowledge? We don't learn knowledge just to be able to get a good job. We learn knowledge so we can benefit other people. Our intention is still returns back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why there's no such thing as non-religious knowledge. All knowledge is religious. You learning engineering is religious, because now you're going to go and learn how to build a mosque, or you're going to go and learn how to build a building that can help with the people, that can serve humanity. You're learning medicine, you're going to save people's lives. The one who saves one life, it's like he saved all of humanity, the Prophet, the Quran tells us. Yeah? And the Prophet ﷺ repeated these types of sentiments many times in a hadith. Yeah, etc. Whatever it might be. So you're doing it, so it all returns back to that. Okay, so what do we need to know about prophets? Number 1, we need to know sidq. They spoke the truth. The prophets never ever lied. Yeah, they were people of sidq, of truthfulness. Number 2, they were people of amana. They were trustworthy. What does that mean? It means, for example, I've got my phone here. If I go and give my phone to somebody and he looks after it, that's a trustworthy person. If I give my phone to somebody and he just goes and sells it to somebody else, or he just leaves it on the street like that, yeah, he doesn't really take care of it, someone comes and takes it. Yeah, that's now somebody who doesn't have amana. Yeah, so amana is somebody who looks after things. Yeah, prophets, they have this. The Prophet ﷺ, look at this, just as an example of his brilliance. The Prophet ﷺ, even when they were trying to kill him, at the end of Mecca to Makkah, they're trying to kill him, they would still leave all of their things with him. He was at the bank. So all of these kuffar, Abu Jahl, all these people, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, all these people, they're trying to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're saying all these, oh, he's this, he's that, all these lies about him. Yet, when they're going to go on a journey and they need to leave their gold somewhere, where do they leave it? They don't leave it with their friends. Don't leave Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, don't leave it with they leave it with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they know his truthfulness is unparalleled. He was the bank. At that time, you didn't have banks. So if you need to look after something valuable, you've got to leave it with somebody you can trust. So in that situation, who is it going to be left? It's going to be left with the Afdal al-Khalq. Yeah. So you have sidq, you have amana, these two qualities. The third quality that we have is we have what we call isma. Isma is that they can't commit a sin. Yeah, it's impossible for them to sin. Yeah, they can't ever commit a sin. They're never ever gonna do anything like the prophets. It's impossible for them to do anything haram. Because if they did it, it's no longer haram. So they couldn't have done it. Can you see what I mean? So therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected them because they guide for us. How are we going to know what's right and what's wrong if the prophets are doing things that are all mixed up? The prophets are there to clarify, to make things clear to us. This is what's halal, this is what's haram. Yeah. So this is the third quality. The fourth quality of prophets is what they call fatana. What's fatana? Extreme intelligence. The prophets are very, very, very intelligent. Yeah. And they needed this in order to defend Islam and to defend the truth against kufr. Yeah. How can you defend truth if you don't have intelligence? Yeah. So they're very, very intelligent in nature. We see this, a beautiful example. This is the Ibrahim alayhi salam. Look at the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. The Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, he comes and he comes and he stands before Nimrud. Nimrud was like he's like the Donald Trump of the time. Yeah, he was like the great tyrant of the time. Yeah, this is somebody who's just opposing truth and goodness. So he stands before him and he says to him, believe in Allah. Look at the prophets. Number one, they were brave. Number two, they called everybody to Islam. This is what we sometimes forget. They called everybody. Because you must say, what, like, because Nimrod's looking at him like, who are you? Like, look at your clothes, look what you're wearing. You telling me, it doesn't matter. They said, listen, this is my Lord and it's your Lord. You're not going to escape this. This is for everybody. Yeah, so he tells him, and he says, okay, so who's this Rabb that you're talking about that I should do? Because he thinks he's God himself. So he said, like, I'm the main man here. What are you talking about? He says, my Lord, he gives life and he causes death. This is my Lord. Yeah, he causes people to live and he causes them to die. Yeah. So he says, okay. So Nuh is trying to be clever. What does he do? He says, I'll call two of my servants. He calls both of them. He says, he looks at him. One of them, he says, kill him. Okay, just have him killed. The other one, he says, I'm going to let you live. Yeah. So he thinks that, okay, that one, yeah, kill him. That one will let you live. Then he goes back to Ibrahim alayhi salam and says, look, I can do that. I'm God. I can do that. I've just had him killed and I've just let him live. So now look at the intelligence of Ibrahim alayhi salam. What could we have said? We could have said, oh, well, no, that's not what I meant. I meant this. He could have responded. He doesn't. He goes, okay, fair enough. He goes, my Lord, you know what my Lord does? He causes the sun to rise from the east. That's what he does. So you're God, you're claiming you're God. Okay, make it rise from the west. Make it rise from the west. What does he do? Just goes red in the face. He's gone. That they say that's if a bucket and the kafir, that he's just overwhelmed. He's got no answers, got no response. That's the nature of fatana. People who are intelligent, they just silence. Because really the arguments are the childish arguments. I mean, what a childish thing to do. You're going to bring two people, kill one, and they all look, I'm the same. No, obviously it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's preposterous. So, but then what's it, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he doesn't even engage, he goes, takes it to a higher level. This is a fatana. This is the intelligence of the prophets. This is the intelligence of the Prophet showed on many occasions. They would come to him and they would accuse him of all these things. He would just say, listen, have you finished? Okay, listen to this. And then he recited the Quran and they'd have no response. One of them, he's recited the Quran to him, and then the Prophet is reciting, then he comes to the point of sajda. When you have to do sajda tilawa. He goes in the sajda with him. And then he's like, oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, he's just so overwhelmed. Yeah, this is the nature of the prophetic message. Yeah, whichever prophet you're going to talk about, they had this intelligence to convince people. And we see this even to this day, we see this within our scholars. Yeah, within the great ulama of today, you still see that. And this is again, same point about knowledge we were talking about at the starting. I mean, like, where's the next generation going to come from? Where are they? Like, where's our future scholars? And if the future scholars don't exist, then there's no Islam without scholarship. There isn't. Yeah, there isn't. Now, the biggest crisis now They say, our teacher Habib Umar in Yemen, he said the biggest crisis of the Muslim world is people don't know their basics. Because they don't know the basic knowledge. It's about, because the biggest crisis is knowledge. They don't know the further ayn. People don't know their basic knowledge, because that's the biggest crisis we have. Forget about everything else. And people want to talk about this issue and that issue. And because forget about that. It doesn't really matter in the biggest scheme. Once you have knowledge, then we'll worry about this. The people don't know the basics. Yeah, this is what, so this is where the prophets come. They say, the Prophet he said, when an alim dies, when a scholar dies, it goes like a gap emerges, an opening, a gap arrives. So imagine you've got a complete building, a brick's taken out of that building. And he says that gap cannot be filled. It can't be filled except by another alim. The only person that can fill that gap is another scholar. So where are they? Where are our children that are being prepared for scholarship? It's one of the things we have to ask. Yeah, where are our children that are going to take on now? Because every generation it goes down. I remember our teacher, Sheikh Ibrahim, said something profound. It's something that, like, I'll tell you, but you've got to almost think about it to understand what he's saying. He said, because if you look at the scholars of today and you compare them 50 years ago, massive difference. 50 years ago, they were much greater, no doubt. Or maybe now we can say 60, 70 years ago, much greater. He goes, but, and listen carefully to this so you understand this, very important. He said, if you compare the scholars of 70 years ago, they're them with those scholars of 1,000 years ago, you won't see much difference. So something's gone wrong. Like 70 years ago, we had scholars that were as good as the ones from the early people. They had great giants. Now we have them in much, much, much smaller number, if they're there at all. So what's the reason? Someone asked, why? He said, because there's no institutes. What has happened is the universities of the Muslims, the schools have been destroyed. The education institutes have been destroyed. And this is what they did now. They went to Al-Azhar Sharif in Cairo. They watered it down. It still exists, but it's not what it was. Everyone will tell you that. The Qarwain, I was there in the Qarwain for 3 years in Fez. It's nowhere near what it was. The Qarwain is the oldest university in the world. It used to be the sharaf, the fakhr, the boast of the Muslims of the Qarwain. I mean, it's a beautiful building. Even now you go into it, you feel like you've gone to the Kaaba. When you step into the courtyard of the Haram, the stillness and of the Qarwain, it's like you've gone into one of the Haramain, if not the Kaaba itself. It's got a beautiful serenity to it. I mean, hundreds of thousands of scholars have studied there and gone out and taught all of the Muslim world. So it's a very special place. So this is the key. Once it's introduced, go on. This is what we have now. Like I'm talking now to people. One thing since I've been back a few months, talking to people, listen, your children, like we need scholars, we need scholars. People, like we'll think about it. People don't want to commit. And if that's not happening, then the next generation, it ain't going to happen. We're already in a crisis. Now, who can now deal with the problems that we have? Very, very few that can understand Islam in the context that we're in right now. Like, for example, you've got like Islamic finance issues, medicine issues now, donor transfer. Where are the answers for these types of issues? We need people that have studied 20, 25 years. It's not simple. I mean, I've done about 10 years. It's not enough. 10 years, it isn't enough. You have to study about 20, 25 years. It's in-depth knowledge. That's why our children need to be established in these things. Therefore, for us to be able to revive this. Yeah, so this goes back. So the prophets had this fatana, and we're seeing this, but it's in less and less numbers today. Yeah, from amongst fatana is the study of logic, what they call logic. Logic is how to think properly, how to reason properly. And logic, again, is not taught, and it used to be taught. It's not taught now. It's one of the things now, the only place where you learn logic now is in like Eton, Harrow, in these the top schools. They teach it to them. They don't teach it to like the commoners now. We just around. They don't really want us to think. They don't, because if you have logic, you're not going to be tricked by all this nonsense out there. Like now, like I remember I studied logic in Morocco. The first thing my teacher said to me, really interesting, he said, if you don't have logic, he said, they can convince you, marketing, because they can convince you alcohol is good for your health. Because that's how stupid you become with that logic. Give me an example. Because look at these marketing guys now. They'll convince you anything on there. Like, this is good. It's not good for you because you can't think properly. Yeah, so logic is the foundation. And that's where fatana comes from. Yeah, so this is the fourth quality. And then the fifth quality of the Rusul specifically is tabligh. You have to convey the message. Yeah, a messenger has to convey. Yeah, so these five, if you know these five, which are what? Truthfulness, sidq, number one. Number two, amana, trustworthiness, mashallah. Number three, we said isma, mashallah, very good, infallibility. Number four, fatana, mashallah, intelligence, mashallah. And number five, tabligh. Yeah, if you know those five, then mashallah, you've fulfilled half of what you need to know in terms of your aqidah. Yeah, for the present. And then there's five which are impossible for the prophets, which is the opposite. So very easy to remember. You know these five, then the others are the five opposite. Again, you don't need to memorize these, you just need to have studied them. Now, what we're doing now is sufficient for you to now be able to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be like, okay, I know my aqidah. Yeah, and you should have confidence within that. Yeah. So then what's the opposite then? What can prophets not do? They can't lie. Opposite of sidq. They can't like betray a trust. They can't like, I give him my phone and it gets lost or whatever. Yeah. They can't do that. They can't sin. Yeah, that's the opposite of isma. They can't have like a lack of intellect, stupidity, a lack of intellect. And they can't hide the message. They can't conceal the message, which is a big problem for us, isn't it? Many of us, now how many of us are explaining the message to other people? Even to our own family, feel shy, don't we? Oh, but I don't really want to like talk to my family about it, even though I know they don't pray or they don't do this, but I just leave it for someone else to do it. What someone else have to do? You take that responsibility on. Yeah. So these five, and then the only other thing to say about prophets is that everything else, like the normal things that human beings do, prophets do, as long as it's not something that goes against their rank. So prophets eat, prophets drink, prophets buy and sell things in the marketplace, prophets get married, they have children. Yeah, all of these types of things. Yeah, this is what is what they call normal amongst prophecy. Yeah, that's it. So when you have that, then the final thing you believe is afterlife. We believe in the grave and the birds of the intermediary realm. We believe in being raised. We believe in the day of judgment. We believe in standing. Yeah, we believe in the walking on the place and then the standing. We believe in Jannah. We believe in Nar. Yeah, we believe in all of these things. We believe in the Sirat. These basic beliefs that we have. If you have that, then that's your aqidah. So this eight juz really is summarizes large aspects of that. It goes into that and it explains aqidah. So that's the kind of the main theme. Then beyond that, now the next thing which is interesting is it talks about the nature of kufr. Yeah, it talks about nature. There's two key points here. The first point is that, people who disbelieve, no matter how much evidence you give them, it's not going to change them. A very important point to remember, that the more evidence you give them, the more they're going to disbelieve. So you might be, that doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? Why? Because the reason they don't believe is nothing to do with the intellect. Understand, there's nothing to do with the intellect. It's because of their nafs. It's their desire that's stopping them from believing. Yeah, so it's not. I look at the Prophet and they said, okay, if you're a prophet, then split the moon. If you're a prophet, split the moon. He said, the moon split. Oh no, we don't believe it. It's right before your own eyes. You're seeing it. Then it's magic. Okay, it's magic. Then they're like, listen, we've got some traders, we've got some people that were like they've gone to Syria, they've gone far away from here. We're going to wait for them to come back because this is magic. But we know magic can't work outside of this locality. So we wait for them to come back. They'll prove that this was a lie. Okay, so they wait a week, 2 weeks, they come back. We just saw the moon split a couple of weeks ago. We can't believe it. They say the same thing. They still don't believe it. Yeah, so this is it. Now, one of them, Dawkins, and people might familiar. Dawkins, he's like the from the A'immatul Kufr, from the leaders of Kufr. So Dawkins, he said, even if I saw God, I wouldn't believe it. Because even if someone took me to the heavens, I wouldn't believe it. That's the essence of Kufr. Well, you wouldn't. So like, can you say what him? Oh no, my eyes are tricking me. It gets ridiculous. Basically, what you're saying is that you don't want to believe because your nafs doesn't want to believe. Don't tell me it's not an intellectual argument. One of them, he came to one of our teachers, Dr. Umar Farooq Abdullah, is mashallah, one of the great scholars in America. One of them, he was like a quantum physicist or some quantum mechanicist or whatever they call him. He comes in, he's got a PhD in quantum mechanics. He comes in, starts talking to Dr. Umar. By the end of the conversation, he's apologizing for his lack of knowledge in quantum mechanics. Because I don't know, he knows more than I do. But still, so people, so they'll admit now, okay, but there's something that's going to stop them from that. And it's arrogance. It's pure arrogance. I remember one of our, there was once, this man was quite belligerent. He was before one of our teachers, Habib Qadim Saqaf, and he's being very he was a Muslim, but he was saying things that were almost like verging on kufr. It was very dangerous. He was saying, he was being very arrogant, and what about this, what about that? And Habib Qadim said, he said, listen, if you want me to, because I can bring you right now, because I can bring you one of the fruits of paradise. And everyone's like, what? He goes, I'll bring you one of the fruits of Jannah right now. Because I'll do that. Because you think, oh, what about this doubt? Because I'll end all your doubts. I'll bring you a fruit. He goes, but I'll tell you something. Because if I do that right now, because you're going to go insane. Because you're going to lose your mind. Because this is a different dimension. You're not going to be able to understand what's happened. You're going to lose your mind. And then he kind of like calmed down. So sometimes he's got to be a little bit like that. Yeah. Then he kind of calmed down a bit, just, went quiet. Because it's like, come on, like, what are you saying? Really, there's no doubt. Yeah, it's all about the nafs. Really, it's all about the people just don't want to believe or whatever. I remember we used to have a form tutor in Ajay in our old school. He was like, he had a lot of like, he knew a lot about Islam. He was surprised, and he was like, you know, like Islam, got a lot of respect for Islam, but I can never be a Muslim. So why not? Because I'd have to give up alcohol. It's straight up, like, at least there's honesty there, isn't it? He's just telling you straight up, this is the reason why, because I'd have to give him nothing about this intellectual argument or that. You know, it's nothing to do with that. These are issues related to the nafs. So this is the first point you have to understand. The second point you have to understand is that the majority of people are not going to believe. It goes back to this point about knowledge. The majority of people are not going to believe. Why not? Because to believe in the truth, you have to get out of your comfort zone. It's comfortable to go with whatever the majority is. Because really, the reason a lot of people do believe is that as well. Why are a lot of people Muslims? Imam al-Ghazali says this, just because of like, my parents were Muslim, everyone around me, so I'll just become a Muslim. No, being a Muslim is about dhawq. You have to experience reality. You have to taste the sweetness of Iman. That's being a Muslim. Or the Sahaba, every single one of them had that. That's why they went and transformed the world. Yeah, if we just had 5 or 6 of those types of Muslims here in this country, this would be a Muslim land. Yeah, if you had one Siddiq, just give me one Siddiq, give me one Farouk. That's all we need, isn't it? Really, just wants to stand. The Siddiq, he's saying himself, when he wanted to go to war against the people that didn't pay their zakah, and they said, no, we can't go to war. It's going to be too difficult for us. We go to him. He said, listen, I'll go to war if I have to go by myself, because I'll take him on myself. And they knew that if he went by himself, he's going to win that battle. He doesn't need people, doesn't need armor, he doesn't need weaponry. Yeah, these are people operating on a much higher level. They knew that, and when they saw the sincerity of what he was saying, they were like, we're going to back you. All right, fair enough, we'll back you. You, the leader, we'll go behind you. Yeah, so it's not about the majority, it's not about numbers, it's about experiencing the truth of this message. And we really saw this personally. The Fakir, I saw this when we were in when it was in Tarim in Hadramaut, because there we were in an environment, people, Muslims from all over the world. So there's like Italian brothers that have just become Muslim there. There's like German brothers that have just become Muslim, French brothers, people obviously from the UK, but of different types. You've got like Pakistani background, Somalian background, then you got like English guys who have become Muslim, then you're seeing Americans, then you're seeing Mexicans, then you're seeing like Chinese people, you're seeing Malaysian, all over the world, Brazilians, whatever nationality you can think of, virtually, it's all there. So we went we went once on this retreat, and we were sad, and one of the brothers, he said to me afterwards, I was rooming with him, his brother, convert brother again from London. He said, you know what? He said, if people saw that outside there, if they saw that Islam and they didn't believe in it, because they'd have no excuse. Because you can, when you're in that environment, you can just see this is the haqiqah, this is reality. Like this is a universal message for every single person. You see that. When you experience that, then you start to understand, okay. Yeah, so really, why did the majority? Because you've got to get a lot. For example, look at that. To go and experience that, what do you have to do? You got to travel a few thousand miles. You've got to go to, like, we remember it was like 50 degrees. There was no electricity for large parts of that. Yeah, so it's like there's no fans, there's no AC. I mean, AC doesn't exist there anyway. There's no fans. Yeah, you're there for 2-3 days. It's tough. We used to go out in the mornings to do like different gatherings and lessons in the heat. You get there within about 30 seconds, you're drenched. And then 30 seconds, you are finished. And then you've got to stay there for another 2-3 hours. And then you climb up a mountain after that to go to a different place. Now, this is it. So you're out of your comfort zone. But that's how haqa'iq are realized. Yeah, that's how things are realized. When one of my wife's teachers, she talked about having to carry water. She said literally she was at a place, she was studying knowledge. To get water, she'd have to walk a mile and come back a mile. And she'd have to carry, her fingers would bleed just out of having to carry it. She wasn't accustomed to it. She wasn't used to it. And like the women of that place who became accustomed to it. Yeah, but she was through those kind of things, I learned more about knowledge than I ever did from any of the books. Yeah, so this is the nature of it. It's about coming out of your comfort zone. Yeah, and at whatever level that is. So that's, and then beyond that, just to finish here, there's it talks about that, and then if at the end it talks about Allah expanding people's hearts towards Islam. So one of the key points here, just to finish, is that Islam relieves anxiety. So like the purpose of Islam, the purpose of Islam is to remove stress, to remove anxiety, and to remove unhappiness from the human being. Yeah, and we see this every single practice. One of our teachers said every single practice of Islam, every single thing that we do Islamically, it was designed to remove anxiety, and it was designed to remove unhappiness from the human being. That's the central purpose. Yeah, and that's why it talks about the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yashrah sadrahu lil Islam. He expands his heart towards Islam. Yeah, that Islam is joy. Prayer is joy. And if you're not experiencing that joy, then we've got to reconnect and understand that something's gone wrong here. That Taraweeh, we should be loving Taraweeh. Really, even if it's an hour and a half, when you're there in Tareem, Taraweeh is about 2 hours, you want it to be 3 hours. Like our teachers there, they read Taraweeh for 2 hours, then they go to another mosque and they read it again. Then they go to another mosque and they read it again. And then they come back to do tahajjud all night. So like they read 20 rakah and it take about 2 hours. Then they go to another mosque, read 20 rakah again. Then they go to read 20 rakah again. And then they're just on the way back, they'll have a couple of dates. And then they're back to the masjid, they do 8 rakah tahajjud in jama'ah. And then it's time for fajr. That's the night. Yeah, why? How can you do that unless you're experiencing an ecstasy and a sweetness within that? I don't need to know. I can just see from that they must be in pleasure. They must be enjoying it. Because how you wouldn't do that because you don't have to do it, do you? You just read Taraweeh and go home. But they want more and more and more and more because they've experienced it. And that's what Islam is about. So we should be looking. They say one act of love is better than millions of acts without love. Yeah, so we should inshallah be seeking out those things that we love and for that to become a means for the inshallah. We stop there. Inshallah wa sallallahu ta'ala ala sayyidina wa habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.